we've got Mickey Marotti, our Associate AD for Sports Performance. He's been working virtually and by phone and teleconference with our student athletes. And Mick, maybe I'll just ask you for maybe an opening comment. Just let us know how you're doing and overall how you think the players are doing, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Yeah, no problem, Jer. Everything's good. Just trying to figure out this virtual world and being away from the players. It's been a challenge for really all of us, from the staff to the coaches, obviously our student athletes. Just not seeing them on a day-to-day basis and being able to communicate at will. Just making sure their families are okay and our families are good. And it's been the most challenging thing I've done in my career, no doubt. So.
Well, thank you. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and open the floor up for questions. We're going to open it up with a question from Dave Biddle from 24/7 Sports with Tony Girdman on deck. Dave?
Thanks, Jerry, and thank you for your time, Mick. Mick, you touched on this already. Can you elaborate, though, on how challenging this time period is for you personally in terms of getting your players ready for the season?
I mean, it's almost like, I don't want to use this analogy, but I am, because it's like if you were it's kind of like if you're in charge of people, but you can't actually be in charge of people. Does that make sense? It's just so hard because, we may have a message of 30 players training at one time, and it's easy. You give them a message, and they get it. They know what's going on for the next day. They move on, and then here comes the next 30, and then you're done. Now it's 30 separate different messages and 30 separate different calls and 30 separate different emails and texts, and it's no doubt twice as busy as if we were still in the Woody. So it's like at the end of the day, you're not that you weren't exhausted before, because you always are, but it's just like you're completely spent from another, almost like a different way.
And just a quick follow-up, how concerned are you that some of the guys on the team are falling behind a little bit right now from a strength and conditioning perspective?
I think it's a concern every day I go to bed. Just when you lay in bed, you're just like, I hope everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And the good thing is we've got some great leadership, and the message that I've given to the players on our Zoom meetings and with our staff is this: like, when this thing's over, hopefully soon, whenever it does, get back to some sort of normality, like, you're either better or you're worse than you were when this thing started. So I put a challenge out to our team, our coaches, our staff, everybody. Like, you're either better or you're worse, and you can't make an excuse about the circumstance that we all have to deal with. There's other people out there that our competitors, our teams we're going to play. Like, are they working harder than you are? Like, I know you don't have equipment. I know you don't have weights. I get it. I know it's raining outside. I know. Like, but at some point, this thing's going to be over. We've got to be, again, you're either better or you're worse. So we pretty much have led that message, and just make sure our leaders are permeating throughout the team when they talk to each other.
Thanks, Mick. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Tony Girdman from the Ozone with Nathan Baird on deck. Tony?
Hey, Mick, thanks for doing this. When we talked to Ryan Day a while back, he said he wasn't going to make everybody wear watches and do stuff like that. But I do wonder what kind of monitoring is going on, what kind of reporting do the players give to you guys, and then what do you do with that to make sure everybody is trying to be better when they get back?
Yeah, great question. The NCAA has some guidelines on us that this time period is, at least for physical activity, is voluntary. So they can't really, by NCAA rules, report objectively back to us. Now, they can, we do contact them, and they do report back how they're doing just from a wellness and a safety standpoint, nutritional standpoint, and things that we're permitted to do. So it's really hard. We can't we can't mandate that they do this training. They can't video things and send it back to us. We can't virtually train, meaning like, we have a Zoom call and there's like a, group of 8 and we're watching them train. You can't do that. So, yeah, a lot of it is, doing it when nobody else is watching. Now, the one cool thing that we were able to implement is a strength and conditioning app that goes on their phone. So we're able to write workouts based on what equipment they have available, whether they have access to a full gym, like a lot of guys actually have weight rooms in their garages, and some guys have limited dumbbells and some barbells and some stuff. And then we've also had the ability to send them bands, so they can do a band workout, body weight workout, some unique things to use with backpacks and things like that. But they have to follow this app, and Monday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday through Friday, whatever it is. And it's easy for them because they're on their phones all the time, and they just go down through it, and they can kind of keep track of what they're doing, and we can kind of prescribe workouts based on what they have and what they've been doing.
I wonder, you've had a lot of teams. I'm not asking you to name names or anything like that, but how well equipped was this team to handle this? And have there been other teams that were maybe worse or better equipped?
Great question. I'm taking it the question is equipped from the standpoint of the mentality of the team.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, again, I think if you look at our roster, we have a lot of guys that played a lot of football. And I think the team from last year and the leadership that we had just kind of carried over. I think it's Coach Day calls it a test. It's a test every day of who we are. I think it's a test of our program's culture, of our strength and conditioning program's culture. I think it's a test of what our team is and how accountable they are to each other. I look at it from a little different aspect. I look at it as an opportunity for growth, because anytime there's some adversity that hits your life or hits your world, again, like, to me, it's opportunity for growth. So if you look at our, I feel pretty good about the 3 linebackers that are leading that group. You got Justin Hilliard and Pete Warner and Tuff Borland. They've been around a long time. So I'm hoping that when they get in their meetings and their linebacker meetings, and those guys are really being vocal and making sure guys are doing what they're supposed to do, so when we come back, we're in pretty good shape. So if you look at all our positions, we have some really good leadership there, and some guys that have played, and hopefully they're relaying those messages of you better be doing your all the things you got to do. So when we get back, we're ready to roll.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next up, Nathan Baird from Cleveland.com with Dennis Dodd on deck. Nathan? All right, we're going to move on to Dennis Dodd from CBS Interactive with Kevin Noon on deck. Dennis? Oh, this is a first. Next up, Kevin Noon, Rivals.com, Buckeye Grove with Mitch Stacy on deck. Kevin? Hey, Kevin, that's not understandable. I don't know if what's going on there. I couldn't. Yeah, that's not working. We can't understand you. You sound like E.T. or something like that. Kev, you want to try to call back in, and I'll call back on you, and then now we'll go to Mitch Stacy from Associated Press with Bill Rabinowitz on deck.
Okay, by attrition, cool. Good morning, Mick. So many players that develop and reach their potential in that that final year of college football. Some of them put themselves into position to be a high draft pick, and just everything comes together in that one year. depending on what happens with this season, we don't know what that is yet. How concerned are you that some players are going to miss out on that chance and, really do anything about it?
Yeah, I think it's, again, I think the circumstance speaks for itself, so you really can't do anything about that. But I think everybody's concerned just because, you missed fall practices of spring football. You missed, now you're getting into, summer training just week by week, getting diminished. We don't know. We have no idea what the future holds. We have no idea what the season looks like. I think, but I do think that is concerning. But I do think that players can get better on their own or wherever they're at, based on also just, maybe sitting back and, learning the game a little bit better. They're allowed to have coaches meetings and film meetings. So I know from a standpoint of just tactically understanding the game of football, maybe when you don't have that chance before because you're so busy training and practicing, and so I think from that standpoint that may be a benefit, but it is concerning, no doubt.
Are you seeing any anxiety from the players over that and what might happen with the season itself, and especially from guys who might have a chance to go to the NFL and really need this season to, show what they can do?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about what they're feeling about the future. I think we all are a little bit just because that's the nature of it. I think the anxiety came from, to be honest with you, here they are where they're off to school, they're on their own, they're growing, they're in the big boy world, they're doing their stuff, now all of a sudden they're back at home, and it was crazy. Initially, I think the first week or two it was okay, all right, this is, spend some family time, it's cool. And then once they realized, this is kind of cramping my style a little bit, they were kind of bouncing off the walls. I know for a fact, Justin Fields was, you talk to him, he's like, Coach, I'd call him FaceTime, and he'd be, walking around in circles in his living room, Justin, sit down, relax, man. And then as time has gone on, he's really gotten himself into a routine, and that's what we've preached to our players, during this time. You have to get into a routine. You can't stay up all night playing video games. You can't be all over the place. You have to be in a pretty accountable routine of getting up and having breakfast and working out and doing your schoolwork and doing your meetings and just having those things throughout the day. And it's almost like as time has gone on, you could really see and hear the maturity of some guys that 9 weeks ago or 10 weeks ago, whatever it's been, it was like despair almost, an anxious despair of, what's happening. But it's actually kind of promising, I guess.
All right, thanks, Mick.
Next up is Bill Rabinowitz from the Columbus Dispatch with Austin Ward on deck. Bill?
Hi, Nick. First of all, I'm sorry that your dreams of being a rock and roll drummer on tour probably got dashed by the pandemic.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah. I'm sure a big part of your job is to be able to be right next to your players physically, to be able to look them in the eyes and them to look you in the eye and see that intensity and be able to kind of get over the edge to push it to 11, to use the rock and roll analogy. You can't do that now. How hard is that for you, and what are you trying to do to try to simulate that somehow?
It is by far the most difficult endeavor of my professional coaching career. I can't even, obviously there's a lot of other harsher and difficult things going on in the world right now. So I kind of put it in perspective. But at least in my little world of coaching, it's so hard just because, I think 31 years or 32 years, I've never been away from a weight room more than 7 days at a time. And the only time you don't get to see your players is during those breaks. And now all of a sudden you're, Zooming and FaceTime. And, sometimes when you're in that Zoom and you got 10 guys in front of you, you just want to reach out and, smack them in the back of the head and mess around with them or give them a hug or whatever. slap them, high five, and dap them, or some sort of, you know, greeting, but you can't. So it's really hard. But again, I look at it as a challenge of growth for opportunity to grow. And it, again, like you start talking about, you can see guys growing up. And I use the example of Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's a young player, a freshman. He don't know, and he's really talented. And he's immature, just like all freshmen are. And then just over the 9 weeks, we call, and now we're on the phone for 30 minutes, and we're talking about training and football, but you kind of get sidetracked, and now you're having a conversation with a 18, 19-year-old kid about, like, Netflix and what shows you're watching and how All-American and, reminds me of you a little bit. It's kind of crazy how the ship has turned a little bit and how you're communicating with your players, but there's no doubt it's been hard.
And there's been a lot of talk, if the season does go ahead, how long it will take to get players ready. For 4 weeks, 6 weeks, different people have advocated different things. What's your thought on that, and what's your biggest concern if and when that process starts in terms of doing it safely and keeping players healthy?
Yeah, I think, again, we've been in numerous meetings regarding that subject, and there's a lot of different papers and guidelines out there that people are putting out there. To be honest with you, it's really hard to tell because we've never had to do this before. Now you could say, well, back in the 70s or Division II, Division III, they do this all the time. I get that, but again, when you're used to a product like Division I major college football right now, how much or how long is it going to take to get people ready to play the game of football? I think we have an idea. It's just I don't know if we know that. I know this: the longer we have to prepare them, when we're at least in their supervision, I think the better and the safer. My worry is if we don't have that time, that some people aren't doing it safely, and they're trying to, put 3 pounds of into a 1 pound bag. So that's my concern, just being, kind of diligent and progressive and safe as we get close. So there's no doubt. I mean, we've had numerous talks with experts and medical people and training people and coaching and coaches and everything. So I think they're still kind of working all those out, but we'll see as it gets closer.
Is there a type of injury that you're most concerned about when you do ramp up?
No, I just think, really anything, because if you're not used to doing something and you ramp up too fast, you just got to do it slow and progressive, and you got to be smart. And it's just, again, I think that's all the questions that everybody has and the concerns. Again, we have some guidelines in place from the 2 organizations that the strength conditioning coaches out there are involved with, the CSCCA and the NSCA. So we have some guidelines in place to have a slow progression. So I think as long as everybody follows those and takes those precautions, that'll help.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
Next up, Austin Ward from Letterman Row with Nathan Baird on deck. Austin?
Hey, Mick, thanks for your time this morning. You referenced early on that not everybody had full home gyms. Obviously, these are college students, and that you'd send out some bands and kids had backpacks that maybe they were using. What's the most unique workout that you've seen so far with kids trying to make do with what they've got right now?
Yeah, we've had a couple. Matt Jones was right in the epicenter in Brooklyn. He was right there. He had some really scary stories that he was telling us. We were calling him, and he couldn't even go outside just because of all the stuff. So he actually took 2 milk jugs, and he did go outside because he filled them up with dirt and sand, and he filled the milk jugs back up. So he would use those as dumbbells because he had nothing except the bands that we sent him. So he was doing presses and curls and triceps and squats with these milk jugs filled with dirt, which was kind of creative. And then the coolest thing that we've had was Jeremy Ruckert. Again, he's in New York, right near the kind of the epicenter where all the bad stuff was around us. But him and his dad built a squat rack, and they built a basically out of wood, which is really cool. I mean, and he was so proud of it. So he actually can lift weights, and he had an old bar and old weights, and again, backpacks with rocks in it for doing lunges, and things like that. Is just as creative as you can be. Pushing cars and lawnmowers and things like that. Whatever they can come up with, to be honest with you.
Have you guys all had to keep inventory of who has what? Because I so you're sending out 30 different workouts to kids. I mean, how challenging has that part of it been for the strength staff here?
Yeah, great question. So what we did was we have the 5 strength coaches, and we have 5 groups of like 20, 25 guys. So instead of me checking in on 120 or somebody else, like for example, Quinn Barham has the tight ends and the O linemen, and that's his group. Kenny Parker has the defensive backs and the running backs. Nico Pelzetti has the wide receivers and the linebackers, and Chris Fenelon has the D linemen and the specialists, and I think Quinn had the quarterbacks. And then I have a group of kind of intermixed group of 16 to 18 guys, and then it's easier to keep track. And then the hard part for me has been just reaching out to the whole team just to hear from me, whether by text or a big thing over this COVID crisis has been FaceTime. Everybody FaceTime, whether it's FaceTime, no matter where they're at, they're FaceTime. So that's been interesting just to see them. But we have 2 different workouts. We have a full equipped workout, meaning they have access to a gym or a weight room in their garage or basement, and then you have limited equipment, which obviously the bands that we're able to send them, and if they have dumbbells, and it just takes constant communication, and we keep an Excel log of each week of what they've got at home, or sometimes people have bought things online, dumbbells or barbells, or they came across things that they're was at their high school field in the back pasture somewhere, and then they'll just let us know, and we kind of tweak their program based on what they have.
Thanks, Mick.
Yep. Next up, Nathan Baird from Cleveland.com with Dan Hope on deck. Nathan?
All right, thanks a lot. Obviously, the plans you're designing are going to change depending on the athlete, as they always do. What right now is the biggest challenge for offensive linemen and what they have to do during this time, just considering the bulk and some of the specified things they have to have?
Great question. So all of our linemen had access to no, they didn't. Initially, they all didn't have access to, loaded weights or, weight equipment. I'm pleased to tell you right now that at this time they all have something. So whether it was somebody being able to get to a buddy's house or wherever to get weight equipment, they have it. And again, like I said, whether they ordered it from somewhere online, they all have it. So that's been very concerning, because you're right. Those linemen have to have not that you can't get work done. It's just a little bit different because of the bulk and the mass of the guys, and how big they are, and how much they got to move, and how much they got to do throughout a game. So right now we're in a good spot. So feel good about those guys.
And I guess similarly for those guys, dietary, like how are you communicating with them? Because that's going to change maybe for them as opposed to other groups too.
Yep. Our nutritionist, Kayla Olson, is she's probably the busiest person of our staff, because she's she reaches out to what we call our high needs athletes, which are ones that need to gain weight or lose weight, or lose body fat, increase muscle mass, and it's really hard sometimes to, the availability of food, and, they're used to having food at their fingertips in the Woody at all times. And now you go home and people are working, and now they may have to make food and make a meal. So it's been a little bit challenging for them. So they do a pretty good job of keeping us up to date of what their body weights are. And again, we know that it may not be 100% accurate, but that's part of their routine. So if they get up, part of our routine for them is make sure you weigh in, make sure you eat breakfast, and kind of go through that time period. So, we're all crossing our fingers because at some point they're going to be back on campus.
Next up, Dan Hope from 11 Warriors with Joey Coffin on deck. Dan?
Hey, Mick, thanks for doing this.
Oh, no problem.
Are you able to give us an example or two of a workout that you suggest for players who might not have weights at their home?
Yeah, again, now, because we were able to, obviously Gene Smith and our administration so graciously let us do this. Everybody has a bit, so they have 3 bands. They have a 75-pound resistant band, a 50-pound resistant band, and then a kind of a 10-pound small band. So, if we were to do a upper body workout, it may consist of push-ups, a bunch of core work, whether they're doing a static core or, the old sit-ups and crunches and things like that. Different glute bridging exercises would consist of shoulder press, pulls with the bands wrapped around some fixture in your house, so you can do like a rowing movement, maybe an overhead. Well, like if you have a pull-up bar or a beam across the basement of your house, you can do pull-ups. Although we had one of our players, Nick Petit, was outside in his house, off the edge of his house, doing pull-ups, and then the gutter fell down, and his mom wasn't too excited about that. So we had to come up with a different plan for him. But things like that, where you're kind of doing body weight exercise, and you just add the band for more resistance. So it's almost like adding weight without, the weight itself. It's just the resistance of the band and the force that the band has.
And when you look at the team, whenever you guys are able to come back together and you have that return to play period, what are the biggest things in your mind that you look at, or these are the things we're going to have to do in order to make up for lost time and get these guys ready? Yeah,
that's going to be the challenging thing. The first thing we're going to do is obviously go through all the testing that we have to do in terms of the COVID and all the medical protocols that we have to follow. But once all that stuff is cleared, I would love to get a DEXA scan, which is a measure of lean muscle mass, body fat, if you will. And that'll tell us a lot, because that's like comparing apples to apples. So we can actually compare back to what they were in March before they left for spring break, and kind of give us an idea of where they're at physically. And then just, again, you have to be smart and slowly progress. And I think that body fat DEXA scan will tell us a lot. And then we can kind of get them in separate groups. Because you're going to have, again, think about 120 guys. You're almost going to have like 4 or 5 subgroups. One of the groups being someone that has been over the top, followed everything to a T. They're self-motivated. They're, maybe they're junior, senior. They've played. They know what it takes. And then you got the younger players that maybe don't know exactly what it takes. So, and then you got the medium guys. And we made an analogy of the 10-80-10 rule Coach Meyer used to talk about all the time. We're probably like, right now, we're probably, in my mind, maybe 30, 50, 20. 30% are just probably in the best shape of their life, and then 50% in good shape, and then you got what's left, 20%, maybe that has fallen behind a little bit. So I think you're going to have to train those athletes when they come back differently because they're going to be in different spots. You can't have a program based on the top 30% and then have everybody else expect to keep up, and that's unsafe. So we're probably going to have to slow progress one group. We're going to have to moderately progress another group, and then we can excel another group. So yeah, it's going to be a little challenging. I think the more time we have, the better. But I just think that's the approach you got to take.
Thanks, Vic.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, next up is Joey Coffin with the Columbus Dispatch with Spencer Holbrook on deck. Joey?
Hi, Mick. I was wondering, you mentioned earlier that D2, D3 programs obviously have a different type of off-season workout regimen. Have you, by chance, talked to anybody at those levels of football about what their ramp-up period is like, and picked anybody's brains from that level of college football who have condensed off-season programs?
Yep, good question. Actually, I have. We reached out to Division II, some of the former interns that are running the program now, and just exactly how they do it. And again, I played Division II football, so again, that was a while back. But again, a lot of it I think is preached within their programs throughout the year. That when the summer comes, you're going to have to hold yourself accountable, and here's the steps that you have to take to make sure you're ready to rock and roll when time comes, when you show up for camp. But it was interesting because a lot of it is just the accountability that they hold their program to building up to that summer. So I guess there's expectations of, what the programs are supposed to follow. And it's very similar to what we're doing now. Some guys, I talked to my one former intern, and he said, Coach, I got guys going away to Spain and overseas as part of a work study program or, classes abroad. And, we have to send them programs where there's no equipment. And then, they come back and they're kind of ready to go when the season starts as best they can. So I think it's all situational of where they're at. But it's almost exactly what we're going through right now.
Mm-hmm. And obviously it was a different era, but what was it like when you were a player?
Well, you got, when you got done with spring football, you had maybe 2 more weeks for academics. You had a couple more mandatory workouts with the strength coach and the coaches, and then when you went home for the summer, because nobody stayed, no one was there for the summer classes, you went home, you worked a job, you were given a program that was mapped out every day what you're supposed to do. There was going to be testing when you got back, physical test of a gasser test or mile test, and strength testing, bench press, squat, those type things. And I think that the guys that were most prepared got the first shot on the field just because they put in the work and time. And then you just kind of, went about your way with the season.
Thanks.
Well, all right, next up is Spencer Holbrook from Letterman Row with Bill Landis on deck. Spencer.
Hey, Mick, when you guys talk about the brotherhood and the culture, a lot of that happens in the weight room, and not being able to be in there, I'm sure, is having an effect on that. Do you think that it could have the opposite effect of what a lot of people think it could, and bring these guys closer together because they can't be around each other as much this year?
Yes, wholeheartedly, no doubt. And I think that's what's happening right now. Again, it's funny. I've got, just out of the blue, usually it's the strength coaches or me, calling guys, or I don't want to say chasing them around, but texting them, and they don't text back, and then I'm texting, why don't you text me back? One of those deals. And I got a couple calls from some players, and they made mention of, they were wherever they were at, where there were other players around, and they're so proud and so caught by how hard they work compared to what others were doing. And I think those messages permeated throughout the team. So that word, there's a sense of pride. again, what they've done and what they go through on a day-to-day basis. And I think our program, just the foundation that it's built. And I really do think that it's a test of their character when they're away from their teammates. But again, like, you're looking at your teammates on the Zoom and you see their faces and you don't want to let them down. And we've talked a lot leadership throughout these times. We've had guest speakers that would talk about their experiences when they played and the challenges that's in front of their face, and just, I don't know, it's just, again, I think a lot of it has to do with the residual from the team we had last year. So many players, the Wyatt Davises and the Josh Myers and the Thayer Mumfords and, Chris Olave, Justin Fields, and just all the guys, all the tight ends. I mean, they've been here forever. And the guys on defense. And I just think, like, those guys are really doing a good job of challenging their teammates, kind of holding them accountable from afar. So that's, I agree. I think they're going to get close. I really do.
Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.
All right, next up is Bill Landis from The Athletic with Tim May on deck. Bill.
Thanks. Hey, Mick. I'm wondering, as your guys are going through this time, is the majority of what they're doing just sort of maintaining where they were when spring practice was abruptly ended, or have there been guys who have made some strides here that maybe were a bit unexpected and have surprised you?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think, again, because I don't want to say it's really what their circumstance is, but it's really hard to make physical gains if as if you were in the weight program in the Woody, and you're getting evaluated and pushed and trained and challenged every day. We're just doing it a different way. But I just think I think guys can make really good gains, and from what they tell us in terms of a very general sense, because they're really not allowed to report back the objective stuff, like they feel like they are. Like, again, maybe it's belief, but that's okay. I mean, they really feel like, especially guys that have that in that position of studying the game of football, whether it's the offensive line, they've watched so much film. I just think they feel like they're in a better spot because they're really looking at their technique and breaking it down. And I know it's hard because you can't go right on the field and practice those techniques. And I just think they're really breaking down the things that they didn't have time to do. And then from a physical standpoint, I think the younger the player, the more ceiling they have to improve. And if they're in the right mindset and they're, they got that chip on their shoulder to prove something, I think they're going to make gains. I really do. And I think the more we hold each other accountable from a team standpoint, from a coaching staff standpoint, from a player-to-player standpoint, unit to unit, I just think it'll carry us at least through this time.
And I know that your job and your staff's job, obviously, is to get this team and these players ready for what's hopefully a season coming. But I also imagine that you guys like to throw the weights around yourselves and get a good workout. Staff, like, what's the setup at the Marotti house, and how have you been able to find some semblance of normalcy in your own fitness routine?
Yeah, so the Marotti house has now they're now fully stocked with bicycles. So we go on road races with my son. We go all the time. We have kettlebells and bands and dumbbells in the basement, and every day I'm down there doing something. I do the elliptical every day for a minimum of an hour. Within that hour, I've read probably 11 books. I haven't read a book in 25 years from cover to cover. I think I've read 11 already while I'm on the elliptical. My whole family, my wife, my daughter, my son, we all walk and we try to beat each other's steps as much as we can. So, yeah, we're pretty busy in and out of, dealing with players and talking to our staff and things like that. So, yeah, that's been fun.
What's been the best thing you've read on your elliptical reads?
Good question. The one I do like is Pound the Stone by Joshua Metcalf. I don't know if you guys have read it. It's about kind of, taking the process and just let the process take care of itself. A lot of different messages. He had a book before. It's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Same thing, like a story, bunch of stories, and back to history, and I kind of love that stuff. I love history. So a good message of just embracing the process, whether it's business or athletics, but those have been two pretty good ones.
Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.
All right, next up is Tim May from Letterman Row with Patrick Murphy on deck. Go for it, Tim. All right. No Tim May. Patrick, that should be the last questioner of the call. Patrick Murphy from 247 Sports. Go for it.
Hey, Mick, thanks for doing this. You talked about the leaders, and Coach Day talked about that in January and needing new guys to step up. I'm curious with your experience with them in the winter and then the beginning of spring practice, if you could give us a few guys you saw emerging in those roles and how they were doing that.
Yes, that's a great question. We actually, I don't want to say put them on the spot, but again, there has to be opportunities for growth in leadership. So we actually put our players in front of our team for them to. The hardest thing is to speak in front of the team, and we had, we do mat drills, and during mat drills, before each mat drill, we had players come up and talk to our team about a message, and we came up with a couple messages, and they had to talk about it, and not to get the team fired up, but just a message to the team, and probably. Again, I've been doing it so long, and I think everybody will attest to the fact that the one guy that stood out to me was Wyatt Davis. He gave probably the most inspiring talk to a team in a winter program that I've ever heard in my life. It was, I had tears. I know a lot of other guys were teared up, and just it meant so much. And it wasn't more about a message as it was about the process of his development through his time at Ohio State, because he was highly touted, wasn't ready, had to go through that adversity, was at rock bottom, and had to work his way up, and got a break. And it's funny, he talked about when Demetrius Knox got hurt in the Team Up North game, and he was playing in a Big Ten championship, first-time starter, and it wasn't. He said it wasn't about, I finally get my shot. This is all about me. I can prove myself. He said, I didn't want to let everybody down. I didn't want to let my unit down. I didn't want to let the team down because this team meant so much. And that was his first two games he started, that in the Rose Bowl, and then obviously what he did last year. But he said, he goes, the one thing he did say was, I never understood or I didn't fully understand the process of how we train and develop our players at Ohio State until I actually played the game and actually played this season, because sometimes it's hard and grueling and it's challenging as it is. You don't know that it's actually, training the mental and emotional part of it as well, the physical. And until he got in a game where you're, 80, 85 snaps, and you got to play from the first snap to the last snap, as hard as you possibly can. Then he finally realized, and Josh Myers was there, said the same exact thing. So that was really cool for me and really cool for our team to see that, and our coaching staff to really see the growth and development from a leadership standpoint of just a couple of those guys. So, and there was more.
Awesome. That's a cool story. I appreciate it.
All right. Coach Mick, thank you so much for your time. Thanks, everyone, for being on today, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Mick.
Thanks. Stay safe.